Donald Trump recently won the Iowa caucus, and Ron DeSantis has officially dropped out of the race, meaning it's just down to Trump and Nikki Haley. And tomorrow, January 23rd, is the New Hampshire Republican primary, the next major benchmark moment. And just to give you a snapshot of where the Republican Party is, I want to compare and contrast two lifelong Republicans who seemingly have a great deal in common. Both say that they're moderate and both are publicly encouraging people to vote against Trump in the New Hampshire primary. But then at the last possible second, one of them veers off in a totally different direction. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert button before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, we have a couple of clips to play in this video. We're going to start with a guy called Adam Kinzinger, okay? Adam Kinzinger is somebody who's featured quite a bit in the videos on this channel. He is a lifelong Republican. He used to be a Republican congressman. And just to put this in perspective, because a lot of people in the Republican Party now despise Adam Kinzinger, at least publicly, when Adam Kinzinger was a congressman and Donald Trump was president, Kinzinger voted with Trump 90% of the time. That is more than most Republicans, including the likes of Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan. That's how loyal Adam Kinzinger was as a legislator to Trump's agenda. He didn't just vote for Trump in 2020. He voted with Trump as a member of Congress. That matters most of all. Now, of course, to Republicans, if you express any sort of criticism of Donald Trump at any point, then everything you did for Trump, even for years, no longer counts, right? Because it's a cult. And Adam Kinzinger eventually left the Trump cult, and he lost his seat in Congress as a result. He resigned because he knew he was not going to win re-election. He joined the House January 6th Select Committee along with Liz Cheney after he saw Trump's fascism firsthand. And he has since dedicated his post-elected office career to basically proselytizing to Republicans as a lifelong conservative, a military veteran, a lifelong Republican, to try to extract the party away from Trump. So I want to play 4 very short advertisements that Kinzinger ran for the New Hampshire Republican primary. And then we're going to contrast it to another lifelong Republican.
Remember how you felt in 2016 when Trump won? What about 4 years later when he sent an angry mob to the Capitol on January 6th? Let me tell it to you straight. If you, your loved ones, and your neighbors don't vote in the Republican primary, you're playing with fire and giving Trump a chance to run in the general election. We only have 2 chances to vote him out this year. Let's make them count. Last week, fewer than 5% of Iowa voters participated in the caucuses, and they gave us Donald Trump. Do you want to be like 95% of Iowans, or prove New Hampshire picks president? This Tuesday, vote in the Republican primary. Vote against Donald Trump. Is there anything that will make you smile bigger than sending Trump to defeat? This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Your vote in the primary matters more than ever because together we can stop Trump. Imagine his orange face turning bright red when he sees he won't even make it to the general election. For 8 years, Trump has been everywhere, and only you can change the channel. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. If Trump is the Republican nominee, he'll inspire violence and divide America even more. We know that's true. We've seen it before, but you have a chance to stop Trump now before it's too late. Vote in the Republican primary so our kids and grandkids will have a democracy to inherit.
All of these very good, hitting different notes, okay? That's Adam Kinzinger. Now, to put a pin on this before we move on to the next guy, again, and the contrast is stunning, especially seemingly how close these two men are, and then where one veers off at the last second. This is Caitlin Collins from CNN asking Adam Kinzinger recently, point blank, if it's Trump or Biden, who do you vote for?
But you would vote for Joe Biden.
Over Donald Trump in a heartbeat. I mean, to me, that's not even a question I would have to wrestle with. That wouldn't even be, to me, something that I would almost feel sick to do. Like, it is literally a decision at that moment between, do you believe in a functioning democracy or do you not? And I think that's the only thing on the ballot. I think that is the only thing. There's a guy running for president who has made it clear he doesn't care about the Constitution. He did that in action and in words. He's a victim of everything. He whines incessantly. He's always the victim of just every happening. we can't take that for another 4 years. America's exhausted. And as much as I disagree with Joe Biden on some things, like, he doesn't hate democracy, and I appreciate that.
Perfectly reasonable argument, again, from a former Republican elected official, a lifelong conservative, a lifelong Republican, a former veteran. Now, in contrast, we have Chris Sununu, the governor, the Republican governor of New Hampshire, the very state in which this primary is being held. And like Adam Kinzinger, he's a lifelong conservative, a lifelong Republican, and he also wants people to vote in the New Hampshire primary and not for Donald Trump. But note where the contrast breaks.
Total immunity from prosecution, even for things that cross the line, including, as his lawyers argued in court recently, for killing political rivals. This is what he said at a rally in New Hampshire last night about that.
You're going to have to give the president, you're going to have to allow a president, any president, to have immunity so that that president can act and do what he feels and what his group of advisors feel is the absolute right thing. Otherwise, you're going to have presidents that are totally impotent, and we've had enough of them already. So having immunity is so important, and I hope the Supreme Court has the courage to do that.
Do you agree, should a president have total immunity even for things that cross the line?
Of course not. The amazing thing about that clip is he was dead serious. He wasn't even making one of his ridiculous jokes. He was dead serious about that, and that should get everybody, I don't care what political party you're from, whether you're an extreme conservative or a socialist liberal, everybody should be concerned with that type of mentality going into the White House.
And
That's Chris Sununu. That is the Republican governor of New Hampshire. Again, that sounds reasonable. He's like, listen, Trump's not joking. I'm not going to downplay it. The guy's a threat to democracy. This is insane. If only the clip stopped there.
yet you are saying if he is the nominee, that you are going to support him. How can you say that you'll support him?
At the end of the day, I think most Republicans are going to get behind the Republican nominee. I'm hoping that it's obviously Nikki Haley. This is how bad Joe Biden is. 6 months ago, Trump couldn't beat Biden. This is how bad Joe Biden is. Inflation is crushing middle and lower income families across this country. We're weak on the international stage. We haven't secured our border. Even Democrats have agreed that he's been completely incompetent and not on the ball there, so to say. So this is where we've come, where Joe Biden is so bad that even folks would get behind Donald Trump.
And yet you're saying that the comments by Donald Trump, everyone should be worried about that. You have said earlier that Trump's rhetoric and actions contributed to the January 6th insurrection. How can you support someone who you believe contributed to the insurrection?
We're here in New Hampshire in the First Nation primary. No one's really thinking about the general election right now. If you want to beat Donald Trump, it has to happen at the ballot box. Don't sit on your couch. Don't wait for it to happen. Don't wait for some external factor or court case to take over. You got to get out and vote. Whether you're undeclared Republican, getting that vote out is how you beat it. That's democracy.
But despite all of these comments, despite his comments on immunity, despite what you said about the insurrection, you would still vote for Donald Trump in a general election against Joe Biden?
Well, according to the polls, most of America would.
You see the cowardly answer. That's the difference fundamentally between these two men. Listen, a guy who votes with Donald Trump 90% of the time, as Adam Kinzinger does, or did rather, when he was in office, is not someone with whom I agree on most policies. We have substantive policy disagreements. I would prefer fewer Adam Kinzingers in Congress, but that's because I would prefer fewer Republicans in Congress. We disagree substantively on policy. But Adam Kinzinger, at the end of the day, when push came to shove, he had an epiphany. And he chose the path of statesmanship. He put country above party, right? Chris Sununu gets like almost there, right? He's like, yeah, listen, oh my God, I'm a moderate, reasonable Republican. And, Donald Trump is crazy and he's an authoritarian. And he's not joking when he says he's entitled to absolute legal immunity to commit any crime while in office against anybody, right? That's so nuts. It's not a joke. You should definitely vote for Nikki Haley, he says. But if Nikki Haley doesn't win and Donald Trump does win the primary, then Chris Sununu does a 180 and he's like, listen, just forget everything I just said because Joe Biden is like totally worse, even though Joe Biden isn't saying or doing anything like that. But at the end of the day, to Chris Sununu, party trumps country. You see what I'm saying? He supports his country only as much as it's convenient, as it's politically expedient. And then when he's given a choice, a mutually exclusive choice between his country and his party, he chooses his party. And that is what distinguishes the likes of Chris Sununu from Adam Kinzinger or Liz Cheney. And there's so many others, too. There are so many others who don't even get as far as Sununu does, who either genuinely are cultists to Donald Trump or pretend to be cultists because they're cowards, right? And then you have Sununu, who's like, no, I'm not a cultist. I will publicly criticize Donald Trump and will publicly endorse his opponent, Nikki Haley. But he never makes it quite so far. And I don't know personally how to feel about that. I don't know if I want to give him credit or if I am as or even more disgusted with Sununu because he's like so close at the edge of an epiphany and then chooses to walk away out of some misplaced sense of partisan loyalty, which, by the way, runs completely contrary to what the founding fathers, which conservatives supposedly revere, intended. President Washington, in his farewell address, preached endlessly about the dangers of factionalism and parties. That's why, when he was in office, even though he had a clear Federalist bent, right? President Washington was not some sort of enlightened centrist. He made overtures to try to unite the country as much as possible, having Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson in his cabinet, right? So when he left office, he's like, guys, do not give in to partisan rancor. Don't put yourself in a position to put party above country. That is exactly what Chris Sununu is doing and what Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney have refused to do. So anyway, no matter what the outcome tomorrow, and there is no question that Donald Trump's going to win the New Hampshire primary. The only question is, will Nikki Haley drop out after that? I don't know. It's possible she sees it through to South Carolina, her home state, where she was a governor. But this contrast between these two men who are so similar in so many ways, and then one of them branches off at the last possible second, it's so discouraging about what this party has become. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think the outcome of the New Hampshire primary will be and whether or not you think Nikki Haley will peace out after her inevitable defeat.